seizoenauteur Darwin Ortiz.
We're going to start by opening a brand new deck of cards. As a matter of fact, Roy, as soon as I finish here, I'm going to give you this deck of cards as a little souvenir to take home with you. Just so that when you get them home, you can check them out, see they really are standard, ordinary cards. Because right now we're going to show people what can be done by a card sheet in a game using standard, ordinary cards. Now, because it's a brand new deck, the cards are still in sequence. They always come this way from the manufacturer. Ace through king, ace through king, king through ace, king through ace. Now, a lot of people believe the way to keep a dealer honest in a game is to insist that he start by giving the cards a couple of cuts. Now, I don't know if you remember when we started, we had the ace of hearts on top of the deck, and we had the ace of spades on the bottom of the deck. And we had the cards in this exact order, ace through king and ace through king, king through ace, king through ace. That's why some people feel you should insist on a more thorough kind of cut. What they sometimes call a strip cut. You'll see blackjack dealers in Las Vegas do this kind of cut. You wouldn't think that the ace of hearts would still be on top and that the ace of spades would still be on the bottom, and that every single card in between would be in exactly the same order. Ace through king, king through ace, king through ace. Of course, the moral is, cutting the cards isn't enough. You've got to ensure that you see the dealer cut is fine as long as it's combined with also shuffling the cards. If you see him both cut and shuffle, then you know that the ace of hearts probably would not be on top, or the ace of spades on the bottom, or that every single card in between would be in exactly the same order. I'll tell you what, I'll shuffle for real. Because what I want to show you now, I'm not going to concern myself with controlling 52 cards like we were just doing. I'm just, in fact, going to try and control 4 cards. And we could use any 4 cards, really. So I'll just use 4 cards at random. In fact, why don't we use... here they are. These 4 cards. Now, I'm going to place the 4 aces on top of the deck. I'll shuffle them into the deck, but I am keeping track of them. Now, I'm going to ask you, well, I'll ask Roy, how many players would you like in a game of draw poker if we were in a game of poker? You want 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7?
6.
You tell me. 6 players?
6, yeah.
That's a pretty good-sized game. I'm going to give these cards a series of shuffles. During these shuffles, I am not going to be primarily concerned with mixing the cards. I'm going to be primarily concerned with repositioning those aces so that when I deal, I get the aces. Now, at this point, I put the cards in front of Adrian to cut. You don't know it, but he's my partner. He'll do one of those cuts that leaves the cards in exactly the same order. Now, let's see if the stack works. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You said 6 players? That's what I thought you said. And notice the cards all come off the top of the deck. I can afford to deal honestly because I shuffled crookedly. And that's what's known as stacking a poker hand. Now, the alternative to a crooked shuffle is a crooked deal. For example, everybody's heard about a bottom deal. So I'm going to start with 4 aces on the bottom of the deck. If I were in a card game and I had the aces on the bottom, I could get them to myself if I could deal them from the bottom of the deck. Now, when you deal to the other players, you deal fairly from the top of the deck. When you deal to yourself, you must take a card from the bottom of the deck, every time from the bottom, so that by the time you're finished, those aces are no longer on the bottom because they're now in my poker hand. But now that's only one kind of crooked deal you can do, a bottom deal. Not many people have heard of a second deal. In a second deal, you deal the second card. You pretend to deal the top card. You actually deal the second card instead. You pretend to deal the top card. You deal the second card instead. What I want to show you right now is that it's possible to deal seconds using just one hand. Now, this is important to realize because a lot of people believe the way you keep a dealer from cheating for using a bottom deal or a crooked deal is to make him deal with just one hand. So I'll show you a second deal done one-handed, used in the United States to cheat at blackjack a lot. It's kind of like pontoon. I'm going to ask you to cut over a group of cards, the way they do in a game. And whatever card you cut to, Adrian, we'll use for the demonstration. You happen to cut to the Jack of Spades. Now, this is a one-hand second deal I might use in a game when someone asks me for a hit, an additional card at blackjack. Remember that we have the Jack of Spades on top of the deck. So here's a one-hand second deal, just as I would do it in a game if you were to ask me for another card, because you can see that's not the Jack of Spades, that's not the Jack of Spades, that's not it, that's not it, that's not it. And I'll try and slow it down a little bit for you. I can't do it too much more slowly than this. And you can see the Jack of Spades is there. You know it's there, but it's not there because it's still there. I'll show you one last demonstration, because now that you know everything there is to know about how to cheat during a card game, I'll show you how you can win money by cheating after the game. Because among big money gamblers, it's a common practice if a game breaks up with more than one player ahead to cut for high card until one man has all the money. So if you can control the card you cut to, you can win by cheating after the game. Now I want to show you it is possible to control the card you cut to just by sense of touch. Before I begin, I'll give the deck a couple of shuffles, and I want you to watch so that you can see that they are thorough shuffles. The cards that were on top don't stay on top. The cards that were on the bottom don't stay on the bottom. I'll try and make the last shuffle especially thorough so that you can watch as closely as you wish and see that this really is a thorough shuffle. Adrian, from where you're sitting, you can see that's a very thorough shuffle. Fair enough? Now, push them in very fairly, so you know this time they were really shuffled. Just before we go on, I want you to notice the cards are all perfectly squared. There are no openings in the deck. There are no bent cards. There are no cards sticking out. No scratches along the side. No marks. No arrows pointing to the position of an ace. All of which makes it very difficult for me to merely square up the cards and then to exert any kind of control over the card that I cut to. Because if I had cut even one card too low, I would have missed. It has to be to just the right spot. Now, before I try again, I'm going to ask Adrian to take the deck, square them up in your own hands, Adrian, to make sure the edges are all perfectly flush, and you just put them down whenever you're satisfied. Put them right down when you're satisfied, that's fine. Now, since Adrian squared up the deck himself, it really makes it difficult for me to exert any kind of control over the card that I cut to. Because if I had cut one card too low, I would have missed. If I cut one card too high, I would have missed. It has to be to just the right spot. Now, thank you. So we've got two more to go. It gets harder each time, too, because there are fewer left. For the next one, before I try the next one, I'm going to give the deck a couple of cuts, and I'll be honest with you. I don't do that to mix the cards. I do that because during a series of cuts like that, an expert card manipulator can usually determine the exact position of any card in the deck. Just as I believe I've determined, I'm going to have to cut 20 cards to hit the third ace. Would you remember that for me, Roy? 20 cards? Would you square them up again the way you did before, Adrian? You can tap them on the table if you want. Put them down when you're satisfied. And remember, when I'm finished, I'm going to give you these cards to take home, Roy, so you can see they're ordinary cards. So that what I'm doing for you here, just turn them face down. What I'm doing for you here, I could do in your home with your cards for your paycheck. For the sake of variety, we'll try something a little different this time. I'm going to employ what gamblers call a Greek cut. If you've ever played any Greek card games, you may know that in some games, to ensure a random cut, they will take one card, they simply toss that card into the deck. Wherever it lands marks off the cut. Now, I find that in my case, one ace will usually locate the other ace. But don't toss it in too far down because you'll miss. Don't toss it in too far up because you'll miss. It has to be to just the right spot. And how many cards down did I say that ace was, Roy? 20 cards. So there should be 20 cards here. Right, 20 cards. You know, I usually get a standing ovation when I do this. I seldom do this, but I hate to be laughed at. I'm going to count these cards for you. I'm going to ask you to help me to make sure I count fairly. I'll push the cards over one at a time. You take each one, Adrian, make sure there's only one card there, then put it on the table. Remember, we should have 20 cards here. Go ahead, take it. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 cards. Too late. No, I don't want applause. I expect a written apology in the mail tomorrow for everybody who laughed. Remember, there's still one more ace in here somewhere, and I have no way of knowing where, but I have found that after years of practice, study, and self-denial, that I can usually reach into the center of the deck with just one finger and pluck out the final